So you got through Zine Quest. It's been busy, and you recently, like I think prior to Zine Quest, you had a big announcement about the channel. So
Oh
for
my
those
God.
that have not heard your announcement, just tell us what's going on. Hi, welcome to the Dieku podcast. I'm Gary Snow, and joining me is Logar the Barbarian. And Logar is the well-known podcast host of Wobblies and Wizards, and has done a fantastic job of daily interviews with creatives and designers from all over the indie TTRPG world. And it's a pleasure to have him back on the channel. Logar, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here. It's good to be back. I'm excited about this.
Cool. Well, I know me and you had talked about like maybe a couple months ago that Zine Quest was coming up. I know that's a huge busy time of the year for you because there's a lot of
Yeah.
indie creators that really rely upon you to get the word out about their games. And how did this Zine Quest shape up for you overall?
It was good. We filled up pretty quick. I was not. Unfortunately, I was not able to get to everybody that wanted to come on and show their games and talk to me, and I apologize for that. I really just couldn't get it to everyone. There was a bit too much. But aside from that, I think it went well. There was a lot of cool stuff and a lot of stuff I'm excited to get. That I personally could only back so much. Is more than I wanted to back that I was able to. Hopefully, I'll be able to have the funds to pick those things up as they come out, though.
And my sense this year, and you correct me if I'm wrong, my sense this year was that Zine Quest, Zine Month wasn't as big as previous years. I don't know if that's just my kind of lens on things, or what was your sight?
It seemed to be as not as big as the previous year. I don't know if that's because some people were still focusing on and trying to get out some other stuff that they had from last Zine Quest, or if there's just was less of an interest. But possibly, haven't quantified it and looked at how many things came out.
Yeah,
So
this is just me being anecdotal, and I was like, because I was like, I just didn't see the volume that I kind of typically saw, and I there's a couple of thoughts I had. You tell me what you think about this. Is the OGL license kind of spooked a few people?
I think some people were scared off of with that. I know that I heard that a few people said they were going to hold off on certain things because of the licensing issues. I can't speak to who did how much holding off of because that did kind of rectify itself, and a lot of folks went forward with some things that were going to be put on hold. Uh, Outside of that, I really couldn't say.
And I guess the other thing that I was possibly concerned with, and you have a good lens on this too, is like the whole market of role playing games, maybe because of the OGL, maybe because the halo of Stranger Things is starting to wear off, and everything's just like, and also everybody is dealing with inflation, shipping costs, all those types of things. I think a lot of things added up to not being as busy.
Yeah, possibly. I think that the one thing that you mentioned though, you talked about the market being what it was and shipping costs being what it was. There is definitely something going on there. But we also just had like with the OGL debacle, a lot of people are reporting record sales of their games. So there was definitely, it seemed like a boost to indie creators in all of that people were reporting back to me here and there when I spoke to some. So,
Well, let's just jump into like what kind of.
mhm.
I know you had a lot of interviews,
Yeah.
but I'm sure apologize right now for we're not going to mention everybody that was on the show and not everybody that had a Zine month or a Zine Quest game. But what kind of jumped out at you as some kind of cool products?
There was a lot of really good You know what? I'm gonna look at what I have backed and
Sure,
start there.
there's there's a lot.
Because I did back, so I was not able to back all of the ones that I had intended to or wanted to, but I was able to back a few here and there. I know that I'm not sure if it was if there was the excuse me, I'm getting tongue tied. When a butterfly, when a butterfly dies, wasn't that the name of the one that Marco from Spicy Tuna did? I believe it was Butterfly Dies. I have to double check on that. That one I definitely was one of the first ones that I backed. And it was called, yeah, Butterfly Dies, and that's for Primal Quest, which is Diego
Yeah.
Noguera's. One that I'm really excited about, honestly, is Ruination Pilgrimage, done by Don Stroud, because that game is using the Mothership rules essentially to do a fantasy game, which is kind of cool. And then if you go on the other end of the spectrum, we recently had the one, my brain is farting, that just went, which goes into the kind of the far future and does a post-apocalypse style with magic and stuff like that in the with the Mothership rule set. So I'm kind of excited to see all more things kind of like deviating from regular Mothership come out of this little sector of games, and seeing where Mothership goes in the long run. Still waiting for the box though.
Yeah, I think they've had a few hiccups on the fulfillment on the Mothership part of it, but hopefully we see something soon, because I'm one of the early backers. I want my badge. And
yeah, the badge.
And
But yeah, it was Cloud Empress is the one that did the future type, like post-apocalypse, interesting little approach to that with Mothership.
Yeah, that was a super interesting approach and game, and I think it did really well.
I think they did a good job at getting things out there and putting stuff out in a manner that got people interested in it to kind of take a look at it and play around with it before they did the Kickstarter, which really helped them. I think that they've done a great job over that. I'm excited to see the final product.
What was the most like oddball game that you saw? Because I mean, I love my oddball games where I'm like, this doesn't make any sense that somebody made it, but I love it.
What was the most oddball one that I saw? I'm trying to think here. That's a good question. There weren't as many. Like last year, I backed some oddball ones that I picked, and I just got in an oddball one that I backed. I don't know if I talked to too many of those oddball ones. Like last year, we had the one where you played vegetables, trying to escape a kitchen, and that one did fulfill though from last Zine Quest. That was a good one. One that I thought was really cool that I saw that might be oddball was Swan Castle, and that's Leighton and Blumiere Connor, and I think that one's neat. It's a magic castle made pretty much. I believe it's pretty much system neutral. There may be a couple different stats in there for certain systems, but it's it was a father-child duo team who put together this setting based on the castle that they had growing up and the little toys and the lore that they had as a kid. So as they're getting older to be a teenager, they work with their father to put together a whole module so you could explore this castle and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is great. Playmobil castle.
Cool. That's a cool story. Did you have them on the show? I tried to catch both your episodes. I might have missed that one.
Yeah, that was Swan Castle, a multiversal RPG setting. So that's the one we're setting out. And actually, after I spoke with them, I found out they were like right here local to me, just down the street too. I was like, oh, cool. But that was probably one of my favorite oddball ones that isn't the norm. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think that the context setting where the idea came from is what makes it the coolest.
Yeah, I love and indie games, and one of the things that I love about indie games is that as a designer, you're able to do that because there's kind of no pressure, no stakes. Like it's your creative vision for what you want to put out there, and you know that there's going to be somewhat of an audience, or you'll at least have an opportunity to find an audience, even if it's like the weirdest oddball game that you could ever think of.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff out there that I've ran into. I haven't got a chance to play them all, unfortunately.
Well, that would me and you both could be off for like 10 years without working, and we would still probably not get to all the games that are out there right now.
I will never be able to play all the games that I have and want to play. It's not going to happen in my lifetime. I'll get to as many of them as possible, but it's never going to happen.
But we still buy, don't we?
Yeah, I still get them. And especially these days, I tend to focus on like more indie creators here lately and stuff that they're putting out. Yeah, and I've always been kind of more fond of smaller press places for a while. Like if Palladium could have been called smaller press in the 90s. I don't know if that was or not.
Yeah, well, it's funny actually. In comparison, that was like probably the lower tier of everything, right? Like Palladium, that was like maybe like Free League is today compared to Wizards of the Coast.
Free League's really picking up. They're getting to be one of the biggest role-playing game companies out here recently, and I'm here for it. They just put out the New Year Zero Engine SRD, which I'm super stoked for. I'm excied to see hoping that people will use that to make some stuff. I've been playing around with it, looking at it, and I'm definitely gonna be playing some more Free League Year Zero engine games here in my future. That's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I love the engine. I got Vaesen, I've got Aliens, I've got Forbidden Land. So and actually Mutant Year Zero. Although to me, it's probably the one game that I have the least interest in. Although that's the
Mutant Year Zero.
I
would love to get a chance to run it. To be honest, it's I like it. I have not ran it yet though. It's very hex crawl and like stronghold focus, which I think is a neat approach to something like that. Different than other post-apocalypse like Rifts or MCC in some ways.
And I saw a really good video, and I'm forgetting who David Thurman. I'm probably mispronouncing the names. Apologies there. But that he did a very good video on Free League as far as all their licensed products and that kind of thing. And I know that they just came out with The Walking Dead, and he expressed concerns about the fact that they were taking on so many licenses and putting out so many games. Are they getting stretched too thin? And I thought that was a really solid video.
I have not seen it. I mean, they have leaned into the last few years very high IP stuff. I've definitely noticed that. It's like Aliens, which is pretty big, Blade Runner, and The Walking Dead. I don't know anything about The Walking Dead. I've never seen it.
You've never seen Walking Dead?
No, I have never seen The Walking Dead. In fact, it had been out for about 3 or 4 seasons before I even saw like advertisements for it, and I was kind of I became aware that it was a thing, and then eventually it became a thing where like, well, I had never even seen a commercial for it. You know, it kind of became my thing. I've never seen Walking Dead. I'm just gonna keep it that way now.
Wow. And like now more recently they have The Last of Us.
We did watch that, and we talked about that in the Anarchists and Androids, which I have mixed feelings of.
And it's funny, it's actually filmed right here in Calgary, Alberta. So
really?
So I often have driven past their sets or places that I see, and I go, oh yeah, that's just down the street from us, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, that's cool. When I was out in California, we used to drive through the Mojave Desert a lot, and there was this one area out there, Amboy, where they would always be filming because it's just like pure desert, and you'd see some guy out there in a cowboy hat kicking sand or something, walking around with a bunch of people following with a camera. It's like, well, that's weird. But they do that out there.
Well, I got a sidetracked here, but back to Zine Quest.
I'm good with that. Zine Quest.
Zine Quest.
Sinless was one that I was definitely excited for. It. I may be. There was definitely a burst of cyberpunk type stuff, especially with Cyborg being out now and some folks putting out Cyborg zines and whatnot. Then there was Sinless by Courtney Campbell, who is sort of an homage to an old game, role-playing game we all may be familiar with, but kind of doing his own thing and taking it in a direction that he may have felt it should have, that kind of thing should have gone in a new game. And then there was Subversion, was another one that was in that cyberpunk genre, a little more emphasis on the anarchistic.
we had Opti, or I had Opti on. He was doing the Game Pitch Gary video with us. So I think it's still, I'm not too sure. When we're recording this, it might actually be ending soon. So, but check it out. That's Fragging Unicorn. If you're out there, I'll put a link in the description above or below.
Yeah, and that one does end in like within the next 24 hours. So I'm sure by the time this goes out, it ain't gonna be.
This video will be out after that, but I'm sure there's gonna be late backing opportunities.
No doubt. And I think there might be some late backing for a few like Sinless too as well. I'm not sure. I'd have to check and find out. We had a good amount of really cool stuff come up. We also had a few more mothership things pop up. Haas was one I was excited for. I really like the other stuff that Tim Obermuller did, and I like the working class kind of Teamster, kind of like union themes and stuff like that through that. And there seems to be also some of those themes in Haas, and I'm excited about that kind of stuff because I dig it. And one of the things with Subversion is that had all the concepts of like mutual aid and stuff like that thrown into the game, which I thought was really cool. I like that kind of stuff too. So those were some of the things I thought were neat.
Cool. And on my end, like I said, I didn't actually. This has been, I would say, probably the busiest like 3-4 months out of my life, the last little bit. Just getting stretched thin, so I didn't have as much time as I had hoped. But I backed Achilles from Singing Flame. That's the third issue of that series, and Geno Funk. I don't know if you saw that one. It just kind of one of those
Geno Funk.
Yeah,
I don't think I did see that one. How do you spell
has like
that?
that kind of like digital AC graphics, that kind of vibe to it. I saw it and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna back this thing. I just love the look of it, love the vibe of it. And there's a couple others that Miro 2, the analog horror game, I found interesting. And then there's a couple of Fantastic Geographic. I think they're on to issue number 3. So I did that one, and 7 Murders Till Midnight, which is a solo RPG game. It just kind of spoke to me.
I say all the ones that I ended up backing, I'm done. There's no more pending now. Usually it's like, it's pending. I don't watch that. I backed the Beyond the Gaping Maw. I backed Beyond the Gaping Maw, which is for Morkborg. I backed Old School and Cool Volume 4. Now I've got more other stuff, but I don't have the first 3 Old School and Cools, and I'm hoping I can order some in the backer kit when it comes through and fill that out. I backed the Demon Lord expansion for 12 years. 12 years is interesting. That's definitely worth checking out. The Demon Lord expansion should be cool to try out as well. Haas for Mothership, Cities Without Number. I backed Cities Without Number to go with my world, or my Stars Without Number. I just need to get a nice printed Worlds Without Number to go with those.
I love his content, Kevin Crawford. I love his content. It can't be beat, but to me, it's the content is so much better than some of the stock art he throws in. So for me, it's never been like, I never really felt like the need to get the printed stuff. It's always just digital for me.
So yeah, there was some good stuff. Weird Dungeon was one. Dungeon Malarkey, Ziggurat of the Blood God, The Doom of Black Winter, Work Beyond Recognition, Normie Generator, and more world building pamphlet games. Of course, Sinless, A Butterfly Dies, Ruination Pilgrimage, Nirvana on Fire, and then I think the ones after that are ones that were prior to the Zine one.
Yeah.
Start with Constant Downpour Remastered.
Yeah, by Spicy Tuna. So everybody should check out that game. That's another good
Spicy
Mothership.
Tuna. I really like Marco, and I like what he puts out there. And I'm excited. Like I said, I'm excited to run it. I've been saying this for a minute. I'm excited to start just get a regular Mothership game going and run some of that stuff.
I've tried, and what I always find, like, we're still waiting for the box set, is like I'm struggling to have players using the digital and like referring to the digital. So I can't wait to get those books.
Yeah, and I've ran it a few times, just the 0 edition. Like, I think once the box set comes in, it's like, okay, we're gonna start running a campaign somewhere. It's gonna have to make it happen.
I'm kind of stuck between both worlds. We're referring to rules in 0 edition and trying to use one E, and
I don't think I'm going to worry about updating the 0 edition books I have to a 1E edition. I think I'm just going to roll with it and run on the fly in case there's anything too different. Maybe I'll worry about it then.
So you got through Zine Quest. It's been busy, and you recently, like I think prior to Zine Quest, you had a big announcement about the channel. So for those that have not heard your announcement, just tell us what's going on.
So we've been doing this podcast daily for a while, and it's not going to be daily anymore. We were stopping for a bit. We're going to put an end to, we'll call it Wobblies and Wizards. Maybe season 1, I don't know. We'll probably, I'm going to be doing some different stuff going forward. Largely just, I've done a lot of things in my life, and it's taken up a lot of my personal time, and I'm going to do other things with that time. And, money and stuff like that plays into factor, what I can spend, how much time where, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, because of financial reasons, because of, I wanted to focus on other reasons, we're going to just kind of wrap it up. Now, I'll probably keep on podcasting, but I'm going to take like a month off of podcasting there at least. And we might toy around with doing a few different things when we come back. None of that is ironed out in stone yet. We got different ideas, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, largely I wanted to focus on a few other things with some other folks that I wanted to spend my time and energy on for now.
And for those folks at home, and I mean, I do not do a daily podcast. I aim for like kind of once a week type of thing. Just like, I don't think people maybe appreciate kind of probably the effort that went into doing a daily podcast, between all the emails coordinating and then the recording time and the post production. Like, how many hours a week do you think you were
Oh,
devoting to it?
I mean, at the least 20 hours a week for a while there, sometimes more, it depends. It was rough around Zine month. It pretty much is a part-time job, and sometimes more. When I started the podcast, it was just me and Light, like Sunday morning, recording a bunch of 15-minute episodes, and then I just edit them and put them up. Um, Editing was the thing that took the longest amount of time, but then I started scheduling more and more guests, and that, blocking out enough time to make contact and coordinate with them. Yeah, it got to be a lot of time. Sometimes you'd be multitasking while trying to respond to people and keep up with that. So that was what it was. But yeah, we'll probably be doing more like that, but not on the frequency we were. And I'd like to adjust how things are done. Maybe make it better, higher quality, things like that, and kind of grow from where we started. We may change up what we call whatever podcast comes out. And I know that I've been working with some others on a few things. So whatever future podcasting may be more involved with some of those things as well. So.
Well, tell us some of these projects that you kind of got lined up in your head. Without, I know some of them are still early stages and that kind of thing, but I mean, you've mentioned the Hobo Guide to the Galaxy, and that seems
there's Hobo's Guide to Time and Space is a game
time.
that we've been working on down here in our little game room, which is where I record with me and my game group. And we've gone back to different revisions of it, and we're working on it. And that's not going to be like, hey, it's all out here. There will be a play test out, hopefully sooner than later. I think a few of the other folks working on it, because there's like 4 of us right now actively working on it. We just turned in a draft to the editor. Waiting to hear back, and then we usually meet Thursday nights. I think this week we're actually taking a week off, and then next week we're meeting in person to kind of nail down the next things we want to brush out before we put out the play test, or see if we're ready for the play test and things like that, because we're trying to get that out there as quick as possible. So that's happening. It's just not, I'm not gonna like rush it super much. It's gonna come out when it's ready, and then I'd like to see it play tested. Some of the things I'm trying to do with that game are weird, and I don't think people are gonna catch on to as quick. So we've tried to create as simple and streamed down and concise of a system that can be built on, and we're kind of working on other stuff to modularly add to that to accomplish what it is we're trying to do, because a lot of the things we're trying to do are not things that I've necessarily seen in other games. So
And your background, I mean, I know like a bit of your background. Obviously, you've been able to do audio editing, and you're starting to video edit, and but your background is in graphic design and layout and
illustration. So I was a kid, I wanted to be a comic book artist, right? Like that's what you do when you stare at the comic book spinner racks too long. I want to do that for a living. I want to draw superheroes. So I did that, and I got involved with some like little local comic book groups and put out a few little like compilations and indie things here and there over the years. Nothing big. Most of my stuff, though, when I joined the military, I was a 4611, which was a combat illustrator. It was an illustration, layout, marketing, design stuff, selling people more. And as I got out, I stayed in marketing for a while. I got out of marketing type stuff, doing illustration, design, and layout about not quite a decade ago, but maybe a little more so than that. I've just kind of been doing manual labor since then, because it paid better than most of the gigs, to be honest. Like a lot of places didn't want to pay you what you needed to eat if you were doing that kind of job. It's like, oh, we're just looking for starters for $10 an hour. It's like, well, I got a family, I'm out of here. And so anyways, that's another story for another time. So that was kind of my background. I ended up, go on.
I remember being like a young graphic designer myself, and how many times people would come to you and just go, oh, do you mind like whipping us up a poster for this event? And nonprofits, friends and all that kind of stuff. But it does get, eventually you're like, you realize that it's almost like bands that get asked to perform all the time. You're kind of like, well, I don't need more exposure.
There's a lot of that. Yeah, and for me, like, I spent quite a while just doing showing and my fine art, just painting and showing in Kansas City for a while, just kind of that was my thing.
Yeah.
Eventually, I moved. The art market wasn't as good where I was, went into manual labor. I liked doing art until it became like you have to live off it full time. And I was doing the art that I was doing for a lot of these corporations and stuff. So, it's been a while since I've done any of it professionally, but I've been getting back in and having fun with it again, trying to do the kind of art that I enjoy doing, which is less digital and more hands-on and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I'm hoping to be getting into a lot more than that. I just finished up a cover for a book, a little zine that we're gonna print here. We've set up a little. We got a few things we're going on. I've been talking to a few people. We're talking about making a worker-owned, worker self-managed collective type thing with some folks. I spoke to Ratty and Cantati up there out of Canada, Drago up there, and we're open to working with folks. We sat down and talked a little bit to Yohai to try to get some suggestions. So we're kind of maneuvering through and figuring out what the legalities are to do stuff like that. So talking about certain things like fulfillment and other things for other folks' projects possibly is a thing we'd be doing when we're putting that together. So that's kind of what we're hoping to pivot to.
Yeah.
But to get back around, because I'm rambling and I tend to not go in a straight line at notice. We got a little book that I've put together with Felix is his name, and he's a theologian. He's going to be on the show. Actually, it'll already be out. The episode will be called "You Believe in What?" ? So if you want to hear about it, go there. And he's put together this cool religion generator that's really in depth. He's a theologian.
Wow.
And we've done some layout for it. We're going to be doing some prints here for it, trying to make them as nice and cool and artsy as possible, perhaps is our goal. And put them out there and see if people like those. So I'm kind of try to be putting a little more effort into doing some of that stuff here going forward than
That
daily
sounds like
podcasts.
that sounds like there's I cannot remember the name, so sorry I forget, where there's the magic item generator and it had
Oh
its
yeah.
old history and everything, and it was perfect because you could throw that into any game and you'd have a complete history through random tables and that kind of thing.
Yes.
So it sounds like if you have a whole bunch of clerics in your campaign, that this might be a really good fit.
Who did that? Who did that
I
one?
can't remember.
I try to remember because but yeah, it's a neat, and even if you're not going to do clerics, if you're looking at factions and stuff like that in the world and different types of ways that people relate to these things, there's some cool tables on how how people perceive these religions or cults and how they perceive themselves and and the beliefs are many. It's just a whole giant theologian's encyclopedia-ish of random theological concepts sharing from different things of reality. It's neat. Most of the interior art is just public domain art. So
cool. Well, I just maybe as we wrap up here, I did want to say to all of the people, the designers and the community, I'll say it on behalf of them. Thank you for the daily podcast. I think it helped so many starting designers get a foothold and get some exposure. And you provided a really valuable service to the indie game industry. And so I'll just say thank you on behalf of everybody for everything that you did. And there's a whole back catalog. So if people have not caught them all, go to Wobblies and Wizards. You can find it on all the podcasting platforms, and I'll have all the links and the details below for the show notes and that kind of thing. But when you're reflecting upon your run, and I know it's not over, and there might be different iterations and versions of it, what's kind of your thoughts on reflecting on the past 2 years, I guess, where you've been doing the daily?
Oh, I have all kinds of thoughts. I've taken myself down through some kind of weird, like I always do this to myself, where I spend a lot of time looking into things, reading them, examining them, et cetera, et cetera. And I spend a lot of time with philosophy is one of my big areas of geekdom that I tend to read into. So I seem to have found myself stumbling down some kind of strange philosophical rabbit hole while doing this, leading to some sort of like personal existential crisis. And I don't think that's I think that has led to something else that I'll eventually be putting out, but just wait and see. I that vague booking, as they call it on the audio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you've definitely got a community around you that would support probably your future endeavors. So you're welcome to come back on the Dieku podcast anytime to pitch any product or just talk about what you're up to. You're always welcome to come back on, and I'm hoping that we can do some of the other holiday ones and Halloween ones and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely down.
So anyways, Logar, thank you for coming back on. Best wishes in the future, and just once again, thank you from all the indie game designers for your work.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate that, and thank you for having me on. It's been great. I look forward to this. I enjoy coming on to Dieku. Is it Dieku podcast? Do I call it right?
I don't even know what to call it, because it's primarily on video, but everybody calls them podcasts, so I just go with it.
That works.